What if the carry-on bag you trust more than your own memory, the one that's been with you through retirement trips, family reunions, medical appointments, and long-awaited vacations, suddenly becomes the reason an airport pulls you aside in 2026 and makes you feel like you missed a rule no one ever clearly explained? Because that's exactly what's happening now, quietly, slowly, and unevenly across airports. And senior travelers are feeling it first, not because they're careless, but because they're experienced, prepared, and loyal to habits that used to make flying easier, not harder. And the truth is, the carry-on rules of 2026 aren't being announced like big changes. They're being slipped into systems tested at certain terminals, enforced differently depending on airline, airport, even time of day, which makes them confusing even for frequent flyers, but especially for older travelers who don't live inside airline apps or refresh policy pages every week. And this isn't about obvious banned items anymore. It's about how your bag looks to machines, how it reads to algorithms, how dense it appears on scanners, how often it's been flagged before, and what assumptions modern systems quietly make about the person carrying it. And seniors, unfairly, are being caught in the middle of that shift, because modern aviation has moved away from human judgment toward predictive screening. And predictive systems don't understand context, they understand patterns. And if your carry-on reflects a life of careful preparation rather than minimalist tech bro travel, you're more likely to stand out, not in a good way. And one of the biggest shocks coming in 2026 is that carry-on compliance is no longer just about size and weight. It's about internal organization, battery visibility, material density, and item grouping, which sounds absurd until you realize newer scanners don't just detect objects. They interpret risk profiles, and when a bag contains layered medical supplies, pill organizers, backup electronics, printed documents, compression wear, orthopedic supports, heating pads, or emergency items all packed tightly together, the scanner doesn't see responsibility. It sees complexity, and complexity slows systems down, which triggers secondary checks. And suddenly, a traveler who hasn't broken a single rule is standing off to the side wondering what went wrong. And this experience hits seniors harder emotionally, because flying used to be about dignity, routine, and predictability. And now it feels reactive, uncertain, and sometimes quietly humiliating, especially when explanations are rushed or incomplete. And the first hidden change many seniors don't expect in 2026 is soft enforcement through technology, meaning instead of an agent telling you what's wrong, the system flags you, and the agent simply follows prompts, often without knowing the deeper reason, which leads to vague phrases like "this bag just needs a closer look," or "the system picked something up." And that lack of clarity creates anxiety, because you can't correct what you don't understand. And then there's the issue of carry-on weight, which is being enforced more aggressively but less transparently, because airlines are under pressure to speed boarding and reduce overhead bin conflicts. So they've started using subtle weighing systems at gates, sometimes embedded in flooring, sometimes built into boarding scanners. And seniors who choose sturdier bags with wheels, reinforced frames, or medical compartments are suddenly flagged at boarding, not check-in, which is the worst possible moment. Because you're tired, the plane is waiting, and you're forced to repack or gate check in front of a line of impatient travelers. And nobody tells you this can happen when you buy the ticket. And while younger travelers often adapt by traveling ultralight or wearing tech-heavy clothing with hidden pockets, seniors tend to pack thoughtfully, redundantly, for comfort and safety. And that philosophy clashes with systems designed for speed, not care. And batteries are another massive shift in 2026. Because while lithium battery limits technically haven't changed dramatically, enforcement logic has, and airlines now care not just about battery size, but placement, accessibility, and proximity to other electronics. Which means a power bank buried under clothing, placed near medical devices, or wrapped next to cables can raise flags. And seniors often carry backup batteries for hearing aids, CPAP machines, phones, tablets, or emergency use, which is smart. But when those items are clustered together, scanners see potential overheating risk, and suddenly preparedness looks like a problem. And what makes this worse is that signage hasn't caught up to enforcement. So travelers are expected to intuit rules that aren't clearly posted, and that disconnect erodes trust. And then there's smart technology, because many seniors now use trackers, medical monitors, fall detection devices, GPS tags, or health wearables inside their bags. And while these devices are allowed, newer scanners sometimes flag unfamiliar electronics for manual review, especially when they're older models or less common brands. And seniors who don't upgrade devices every year are more likely to carry tech that scanners don't instantly recognize, leading to delays that feel personal even when they're not. And carry-on materials themselves are under scrutiny too, because dense padding, memory foam, reinforced bases, and layered fabrics show up differently on scanners than minimalist bags, and seniors often choose comfort and durability over ultralight aesthetics, which again puts them at odds with modern screening expectations. And none of this is communicated clearly. Because airlines benefit when passengers self-correct quietly rather than question policy, and confusion reduces confrontation, and that's why so many seniors feel like flying has become less forgiving, less polite, less human. Not because people have changed, but because systems have and systems don't explain themselves, and the emotional toll of this shift is real. Because older travelers value respect, preparation, and clear rules. And when those disappear, anxiety fills the gap. And it's not uncommon now to hear seniors say they feel nervous days before flying. Not because of turbulence or delays, but because they're afraid of doing something unknowingly wrong. And that fear changes how people travel, sometimes discouraging trips altogether, which is tragic. Because travel in later years isn't about convenience. It's about freedom, connection, and joy. And the irony is that most carry-on issues in 2026 are completely avoidable once you understand how modern systems think. Because these systems don't judge intention, they judge patterns. And once you pack in a way that looks simple to a scanner, not just logical to a human, your experience improves dramatically. And this is where knowledge becomes power. Because seniors who adapt their carry-on setup slightly, without sacrificing comfort or safety, can move through airports smoothly again. And that starts with understanding that less density beats less items, meaning spreading items out, separating electronics, clearly labeling medical supplies, using transparent pouches, and avoiding tightly layered clusters. And it also means choosing bags that look visually simple on scanners, even if they're supportive and durable. And it means being proactive instead of reactive, because waiting until the airport to learn a rule is the most stressful way to travel. And while airlines won't always explain these changes clearly, channels like Golden Age Travel Tips exist specifically to decode them, to translate modern aviation into language that respects experience, not just speed. And as we move deeper into 2026, the gap between informed travelers and confused ones will grow. Not because rules are harsher, but because understanding is uneven. And seniors deserve better than trial-and-error travel. They deserve clarity, calm, and confidence, which is why learning these carry-on shifts now, before your next trip, can completely change how you feel walking into an airport again. Not tense, not unsure, but prepared, steady, and in control.